Each Monday, I go over the biggest risers and fallers in average draft position, aka ADP, in the best ball markets. I'll discuss whether I'm buying or selling these players at their new prices and why. The idea is to get you up to speed very quickly on what's happening out there in drafts and how to adjust. Want to start with Chase Brown. Chase Brown, Bengals running back, up 3.2 spots to 121st overall on Underdog. This move stems from some positive reports on Chase Brown out of training camp. Quote unquote, taking the majority of reps with the ones was one report. Joe Goodberry, one of the top Bengals reporters, in my humble opinion, he said, I expect a 50-50 split between Zach Moss and Chase Brown with a chance for Chase Brown to win the thing. Moss is here for pass protection. Brown has done everything they've asked of him from last year to this year. He's at least Jaylen Warren. There were also some camp tape highlights that got released of Chase Brown ripping off some big runs, which, by the way, I mean, Jesus, guys, can we get real? I mean, I just scroll right past the training camp highlights. It would be impossible for me to care less, let alone have that affect ADP. But anyway, look, I think this is tougher than it seems on Chase Brown. One thing we know for sure is that he's historically struggled in pass protection, and the Bengals did not trust him to do it last year. He played in 12 games. He was in for 3. I repeat, 3 third down snaps in those 12 games. During that sample, Travion Williams got 33 third down snaps. Joe Mixon got 28. Now, of course, Joe Mixon is gone. You know, guys can get better at things like pass protection. Chase Brown can still earn targets on early downs. But it's not great when we can't project you to be in for those third down screens, third down checkdowns, 2-minute drill, 4-minute drill with Joe Burrow. And then on top of that, the pass catching concerns, I think most people assume Zach Moss is a better goal line option. I'm not sold on that. You know, Brown and Zach Moss are both the same size, both around 5'10", 5'11", 215 pounds. You know, I'm not ready to completely concede the goal line job to Zach Moss, but that's certainly possible too. So obviously, if you're not getting pass downs and you're Chase Brown and you're not getting goal line, it's going to be really hard to be successful in fantasy as a running back. That's where most of the points come from. Now, all that said, Chase Brown is still a player that I want. A year 2 running back who flashed serious juice in year 1. Team has told us with their actions they want him to make a leap in usage, has shown an ability in college to handle big workloads, plays with a quarterback who's very good and very good at throwing to running backs on all downs in one of the league's best offenses. So I'm still buying Chase Brown here as he fits kind of the mold or the format that most of my teams are in. And just on the assumption that he's going to play his way into volume, you know, he's going to be good. But it's getting way thinner for me as he pushes towards round 9. I do think Chase Brown will be way cheaper in home leagues, and I'll certainly be targeting him there. Second riser is Cardinals wide receiver Michael Wilson. Wilson up 3.3 spots to 170 overall. Cardinals opened camp with Michael Wilson operating as a starter and Zay Jones with the backups, which I thought was an encouraging sign. You know, I know Zay Jones, quote unquote, sucks, but he earned targets pretty well in Jacksonville. And Zay Jones seemingly chose Arizona over some cleaner landing spots like Dallas. So I thought it wasn't a great sign for Wilson that the Cardinals went out and got Zay Jones, even if it was for cheap. So yeah, great to see Michael Wilson operating with the Kyler group to open camp. I thought he flashed some upside last year. Underlying stats on a per route basis weren't terrible. And I do think that the Cardinals offense is really going to take off this year as part of some wild shootout games. So my exposures at quarterback in best ball are mostly flat or flatter than most positions, but I do have 20% Kyler through roughly 50 drafts or so. And I have Michael Wilson on most of those. Naked Michael Wilson, I'm not as excited about, but if I need some upside at wide receiver, you know, this late at pick 170, I'll take some shots there too. It's the kind of player where I think he'll pop for, you know, 475 one week and then get lost in the mix next week. You know, similar to a lot of guys, wide receivers that go in that range, like Demarcus Robinson, Wan'Dale Robinson, Troy Franklin, Bateman, etc. Kind of have a bit of a ceiling, but inconsistency. Third riser is DJ Chark. DJ Chark up 7 spots to 190 overall. Speaking of depth charts, not a huge surprise to me or to anyone that's been following this stuff closely, but DJ Chark opened camp with the Chargers starters in 3 wide receiver formations. Quentin Johnston, the 2023 round 1 pick, is with the backups. I mean, first of all, that's how bad QJ was last year. I mean, DJ Chark walks in. Yes, I know it's a new regime, but DJ Chark walks in and is immediately ahead of Quentin Johnston. Second, Harbaugh, Roman have talked positively about Johnston. I mean, what else are they going to say? But, I wouldn't rule out him getting chances and maybe real chances this year in this DJ Chark spot, and playing some kind of rotation. And for that reason, there's just no way I'm chasing Chark up the board here on this news. I think the role both Chark and Quentin Johnston will play this year is some clear out vertical stuff on an offense that projects to be near the bottom of the league in neutral situation throw rate. So even at pick 190, I'm usually taking some late round flyers who I think have more upside. Braylon Allen, Damian Pierce, I think are better around there if I need running back help. Greg Dortch, Jalen Tolbert, they play more fantasy friendly offenses. Jalen McMillan, I think, has some more uncertainty on talent, which I consider a good thing at that point in the draft. We kind of know what DJ Chark is, but what if Jalen McMillan is really damn good? All that said, I still think Justin Herbert stuff is interesting in best ball. If the Chargers are ineffective running the ball, and let's be honest, I mean, Gus Edwards and a damaged J.K. Dobbins, it's possible they're ineffective running the ball. Maybe we get more pass volume than the market expects. And at that point, Justin Herbert is so good that I think Ladd McConkey in the 70s, Josh Palmer around pick 100 is pretty interesting when you can get Justin Herbert way back at pick 135 or so. All right, this week's fallers. I do want to note that Kendre Miller was the biggest faller by a mile. Clyde Edwards-Helaire too. Covered both of those situations with Silva last week, so I'm going to skip them there. Go ahead and check back on our previous pod for more on those guys. First faller I want to talk about is Jalen Wright. Dolphins rookie Jalen Wright down 6 spots to 167 on DK. Haven't spent much time talking about Jalen Wright this offseason, so wanted to get to him here. Round 4 rookie out of Tennessee. Really athletic dude, ran a 4.38 with one of the best long jumps ever for a running back at the combine. But most notable to me is that Mike McDaniel, my close personal twin, Mike McDaniel, and the Dolphins actually traded up to get Jalen Wright. Gave up a round 3 pick in 2025 to move up in round 4. And clearly, Jalen Wright fits the profile of what McDaniel looks for, insanely fast athletes who can do wild things after the catch or in space. The reason Wright goes so late and is sinking here, again, down to 167 on DK, it's hard to find projectable volume for him. We know Devon Achane needs more touches. We know Raheem Mostert, even though he's 32, is still the starter. Throw rate is going to be solid, given Tyreek and Waddle contract you just gave Tua. But man, I have zero doubt Jalen Wright is going to be very productive on a per touch basis. And if Achane or Mostert miss games, which I think is a pretty strong bet, Wright is going to get good opportunities, even with Jeff Wilson maybe still on the team. Bottom line is I haven't taken much Jalen Wright yet. So many rookies just going too high in the early best ball stuff. Not all of them. We have some good positions on rookies, but like Rome Odunze and Malik Neighbors. But so many rookies just going too high in the early best ball stuff, especially some of these later guys like A.D. Mitchell, I thought, and Ben Sinnott and Jalen Wright for a while. But now that more casuals are coming in, we're seeing some of these lesser known rookies drop. And I'll take some shots in larger field contests here at 167 on Jalen Wright. Always want to bet on the Dolphins and McDaniel for their huge, 40-point games, 30-point games that their speed yields. Second faller, Big Mike Williams. Big Mike Williams of the Jets now down 8.5 spots to 138 overall on DraftKings. Big drop for Big Mike, who tore his ACL in September of last season. It was reportedly a clean tear, ACL only. This is the kind of knee injury from which players are getting back remarkably fast from these days. Now, the reason that Williams is falling so much is because he opened camp on PUP, on the PUP list. And so, therefore, he has that big red out in all capital letters next to his name on DraftKings. Talked about this before. Understanding that red out thing is so huge because it's going to tank ADP. Anybody who has it is tanking Olave's. ADP or tanked Olave's. ADP for a little bit, even at the top. These guys at the bottom who have it, people who don't know that Big Mike is expected back in a few weeks, they just don't take him. Now, they also don't realize that the pup listing from Big Mike was not a surprise. He can come off this list at any time. Jets, again, expect to get him back in practice in 2 to 3 weeks. People just panic when they see the Mike Williams on pup list headline. So much like Breece Hall last year, I would expect a ramp up period for Mike Williams. But I'd say the likeliest outcome, the base case, is that Williams is close-ish to full strength by October. And given his ability, given the lack of depth at wide receiver for the Jets, given Aaron Rodgers looking really healthy at camp, I think 138 overall is pretty strong for Big Mike. Just a massive drop in ADP here, 8.5 spots. I mean, he's going, Mike Williams is going after A.D. Mitchell on underdog. He's going after Cole Kmet and Hawkinson on DK and Freiermuth and Stafford. So yeah, I don't have a ton of Big Mike yet, but now I think is the right time for me to get some Mike Williams while he has that red out next to his name. Third and final faller to discuss is Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk down 2 spots to 50th overall on DraftKings. And I'd also note that George Pickens is falling on DraftKings. Zay Flowers, Tank Dell, T. Higgins, they're all falling. And I'll get to that in a second. First, I want to address on Christian Kirk because our rankings are higher than market on Christian Kirk. First of all, you can go listen to the Establish the Edge podcast on the AFC South for more on that. You can also listen to episode 730 of this podcast where Leon and I talked about some of our biggest differences in ranking versus market. A big part of it is people just giving up on Trevor Lawrence. The market was massively in on Lawrence in 2023. He was going in like the 60s and the 70s. We had a big fade on him. He's had a pretty rough 2023 output-wise, I would say. But a lot of that was just unlucky stuff. Maybe the unluckiest quarterback in the league based on the way he played relative to his fantasy points. And now he's going 4 to 5 rounds later than he did a year ago. Just an overreaction. And on Christian Kirk, I mean, the underlying stuff is simply really good on Christian Kirk. And we know Calvin Ridley is gone. We think Brian Thomas Jr. will be good, but that's unclear. Expecting Gabe Davis to not be a high target order. Now, one thing I will say about Christian Kirk in early round 4 is he's pretty unlikely to just torch you if you don't have him, right? Like, given where he plays on the field, given his ADOT, his pass rate on Jacksonville, he's probably not going to torch you. But I still think, he can't have like a Puka season because Matthew Stafford can produce those seasons in a way that I think the Jaguars offense and Trevor Lawrence can't. But I still think that Christian Kirk's really solid. Surprised he's dropping down to 50th overall here on a full PPR site like DraftKings. The one thing I did want to touch on, though, that I think is important, wide receivers in this range, right here around this Christian Kirk range, they're all falling. All the top 10 fallers, again, all of the top 10 fallers within the top 100 on DraftKings this week are basically wide receivers. An underdog is not far behind. And what's going on seems clear. Training camp is open. People have actually been having intercourse for the last few months, are drafting a ton now. The raw number of drafts per week are up. So running backs and quarterbacks are going higher. Wide receivers are going lower. That's just what more casual people want to do. Not a surprise at all. Our counter to this can be breaking ties by going earlier at running back. For example, Josh Jacobs or Tank Dell. I'd never take Josh Jacobs ahead of Tank Dell before on DraftKings. But now that I can get Christian Kirk later, I got George Pickens. I don't even like George Pickens, but I got him at 56 overall last night on DraftKings. Zay Flowers, T. Higgins, they're all falling. I would feel better now about going Josh Jacobs over Tank Dell because I can get those wide receivers later than I could before. Hope that makes sense. All right. That is going to do it for this week's Market Monday. Be sure you're subscribed to the show on iTunes or YouTube. It is free, and we have a ton coming up. Later this week, we're recording shows about the running back dead zone. Does it still exist and how to handle? We'll get to Silva and my favorite sleepers right now. Quarterback outlooks with JJ Zacharyson as well. It is indeed time for peak fantasy football season. For Producer Luke, for Producer Jackson, for Jerry, the most beautiful beast in the world, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.